Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with fabulous concert programs number 35. And now we begin our cycle of Magnard symphonies. Alberic Magnard, M-A-G-N-A-R-D. Who was Magnard? Well, he's only become known in the past couple of decades, but the fact is he was the greatest French symphonist before Albert Roussel. He really was. I mean, he was terrific. He was a composer of great seriousness. He did not live to write a lot. First of all, he was very meticulous and sort of a late starter. And second of all, he died young at age 49, defending his farm from invading German soldiers during World War I, and they blew him up, literally, they did. And so he was dead, and his music vanished subsequently. He was a wonderful composer, serious composer, and ironically, since the Germans killed him, a very Germanic composer. He was an instrumental music guy, a symphonist. He wrote a string quartet, a violin sonata, a cello sonata, a few little other chamber things, a tiny bit of piano music, two big operas, Gliere and Berenice, one of which was, well, it was complete, but not completely orchestrated when he died, and four, count them, 4 symphonies, as well as a handful of other short orchestral works. But they're all very, very aesthetically elevated. The short orchestral works like the Hymn to Liberty and the Chant Funèbre, they're no-nonsense pieces. And so as a symphonist, he was fully cognizant of the tradition in which he was working. His dates, by the way, were 1865 to 1914. 1865 was the same year that Sibelius was born. So that's the generation that he was a part of. And as a symphonist, he's in that French tradition inaugurated by César Franck with his Symphony in D minor of 1888, and Chausson and Dandy and all of those people, that sort of thing. That is symphonies that are usually in cyclical form with mottos or themes that come back in each movement. And the scoring is rather dense but colorful and somewhat Wagnerian in terms of its harmony, very rich harmonically. And it's really a lot of fun to find a way to program these works because they are magnificent. They truly are. Now, the first symphony is as good as unknown amongst the 4. It's the least performed, the least popular. It only occurs in Magnard Symphony cycles. I've never heard of anyone dreaming of actually playing it in a live concert, God forbid. It is in some ways atypical because Magnard symphonies were very classically framed symphonies and structured. And so, they use orchestras that don't have a lot of extra instruments. They don't use a lot of extra percussion. They're sober and austere symphonic organisms. But he knows what he's doing with that, within that framework. They're not inhibited in any way, not the slightest bit, but they are definitely of a type. The first is atypical, though. It has extra percussion. It's got quite a bit of extra percussion, bass drum, triangle, a snare drum, and cymbals and things. And it also has 3 saxophones. Which is very, very unusual. So Magnard hadn't quite settled into his mature style, but it's not an immature symphony. It's also not a very long symphony. It's only about half an hour or less, 25 minutes. It's not taxing for the audience, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a real novelty. And for that reason, in this program, I put it first. Just sit them down and play it. That's how I feel about this thing, because they'll enjoy it, and then the novelty's over, and then we have some rather interesting things coming. Because instead of the normal concerto, which I think would be rather long and sort of heavy-handed after this symphony, I've decided to do a real novelty. Glière's Concerto for Coloratura Soprano. Do you know that work? Oh, it's fun. First of all, it's short. It's like 15 minutes long, but it's a vocalese, an endless vocalese for a coloratura soprano and orchestra. And it's rich and yummy and pretty, and it's totally superficial. It's everything the Magnard isn't, but lots of fun. Really, really fun. And totally new and different. People will be amazed by it. If you have a really fun, fun-loving soprano, I mean, Joan Sutherland recorded it, for example, you could have a great time with it. And then we have intermission. So the soprano gets the final bow before the intermission, but because you gave her the Gliere Concerto for Coloratura soprano and allowed her to showcase her talents, she has to come back at the beginning of part 2 for Villa-Lobos and Bachianas Brasileiras number 5 for 8 cellos and soprano. And you know that one. It's got that wonderful thing where she does the vocalize, da, 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 da. Well, you know what I mean. And then she hums. And there's a poem in the middle of each movement. The second movement is a dance. It's a dancey thing that is impossible to translate. It's something about a bird and something in Portuguese, Anyway, it's something like that. And it's lovely. And it makes just a wonderfully bracing introduction to the second half, which will conclude with Elgar's Enigma variations. And I love the Enigma variations, first of all. And second of all, Enigma variations is kind of like the English equivalent of pictures at an exhibition. A series of really colorful vignettes that add up to just this blockbuster conclusion. It's a fantastic piece to end the second half of your program with. It really is just marvelous. And I think this will be such a fun program that the fact that the Magnard is a major novelty won't be intimidating or off-putting for anybody at all. Everyone's just going to have a whale of a good time. And it'll put everyone in a really good frame of mind to listen to the next 3 Magnard symphonies on the programs to come. So give it a listen, see what you think. I think it works wonderfully. And keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.